All right. I know there's a lot of information in the course, and that can be a little bit overwhelming. And often you don't know where to start. And it really depends where you're at right now, what you need to improve, because it's not the same if you tell me you don't understand anything at all, or that if you understand pretty well but you can't speak. Obviously, you need to do different exercises, right? But what I always recommend at first, uh, this is an easy thing you can do with at any stage to improve all areas. Basically, you have a lot of different content for each language, and I always recommend starting with grammar. I always do the same. It's always, when in doubt, always do the same exercises. Memorize vocabulary with associations. Just do as many of them as you can per day. Start with 10, then 20. It's like working out. You build up, right? It's a skill that you're learning. Create associations. Create Anki flashcards so you can do retrieval practice with them. So English into Portuguese and Portuguese into English. So Portuguese into English to see if you understand when you say it in Portuguese, and then English into Portuguese to see if you can actually say those things correctly. If you do English into Portuguese, you're forcing yourself to think in Portuguese, and you also, if you say it aloud, you develop in muscle memory, you get in speaking practice, and you get an immediate feedback, so you get error correction, constant feedback, so you work in all areas of your speaking with retrieval practice as long as you do it aloud and you pay attention to the corrections, right, to the feedback. So memorize the vocab, make flashcards, and review as many of them as you can. Review the list as well, and if you take the audio files as well, if you if you don't find it too painful to listen to, just make a playlist and listen to them over and over, because that way you improve your comprehension. It's extra reviewing time that you get in. It will really help you speaking, both your pronunciation, because if you repeating the same sentences over and over again, you're listening to them over and over again, your uh, pronunciation will improve. Your comprehension will really improve, but also your own pronunciation, because when you doing the flashcards and you saying the sentences aloud, you'll be trying to say sentences you've listened to over and over again. So your pronunciation will be much better, and also you're much more likely to use grammar and vocabulary correctly if there are sentences you've listened to dozens of times. Yeah. So audio files, listen to them, memorize the vocab with associations, review the lists, read them, maybe read them aloud if speaking still hard for you, and then make flashcards and review them, and actually translating to the target language aloud, and then so that you get in speaking practice, uh, and then check and self correct. If you made a mistake, then say it aloud again, this time correctly. So that's the game plan for all of this. Yeah, it's always the same. When in doubt, there are a lot of other exercises you can do, but this is something you can do at any level, and you'll improve. Yeah, memorize more vocab, binge listen to the sentences, translate into the language, and self correct with the feedback. Yeah. So I recommend you start with this basic grammar, lots of sentences that teach you all the basic grammar of the language. In fact, all the grammar all the way to C1. So you just do that with A1, E2 grammar at least, and then maybe intermediate grammar as well. Although it's not that important for basic conversation, just basic grammar from here. And then start with vocabulary. Once you learn this, basic verbs, basic nouns, etc., jump to the big list. And this is going to take time, but it also gets easier and easier, because once you know a decent amount of vocab, you'll know everything else. It'll be much easier to understand in context, because you'll understand quite a lot of the words in the context sentence, right? Also important, this I can't really do it for you. You have to write them down, make a list of all the situations, conversations, all the stuff you normally talk about. Write as much as you can, and then use ChatGPT, DeepL, whatever you want, to translate it into the target language. And you do the same thing. You apply the same concepts. Yeah, you create flashcards, you memorize it with associations, and that's it. And then you learn those exactly the same way. This will really help your speaking. It's very task based, so it's specific for your own life. So the more detailed it is, the more comprehensive, the more situations there are, and the more content you write for each one of them. So if you're really into working out, and then uh, you want to be able to talk to people in the gym, then you should write a lot of stuff that you want to be able to say in the gym or about going to the gym. Yeah, it should be both situational, stuff you want to say while in the situation, and also descriptive, or like talking about something. Yeah. So, for example, this is mine. Um, Obviously, you don't unless you're into jiu-jitsu, you don't need that. But I have sentences both to talk about jiu-jitsu, but also sentences to talk during jiu-jitsu. And you could do the same thing for everything, as well as daily, like short daily interactions, you know, going to a shop, talking to people in the street, asking for something, hiring something, any kind of interaction you normally have, you should probably write it down, translate it, including the language islands. In fact, whenever you have something coming up, this the maintenance guy come in or whatever. Every time you uh, you know you're going to have a certain interaction, you could prepare 20, 30 sentences for that, translate them, and learn them with the exact same approach. Yeah, memorize vocab, create flashcards, retrieval practice. So this has very immediate effects on your speaking skills. But in general, that's good for small talk and for basic conversations. But you need a lot more vocabulary than that, because you can't come up with every word in the language. So use this as well. This is more long term. If you want to be able to understand the language well, you need thousands of words. So slowly memorize more vocabulary every day from there, and yeah, keep reviewing the list once you've learned the basic grammar. So first grammar, then basic vocab and language islands, and then just a long list. Finally, this is all great for your speaking, but you also need listening practice. You That's the thing. If you just listen, if you watch shows and you listen to podcasts and do that kind of thing, it will be helpful. But just with that, you can't really learn to speak well. You need thousands and thousands of hours, which you don't have. I mean, you do have them, but it's time that you could be using for something else. And it's not very effective when it comes to your own speaking. It's good for comprehension. Yeah, each a language is a system, and each thing works a specific area of your language, of the system. So each exercise works a different area. So this are very specifically designed to improve your speaking. So binge listening to the grammar sentences will help you understand how grammar works quickly. But they won't be that useful once you are past that. So you need to combine them with regular listening of. I recommend podcasts and radio more than watching shows, because watching something implies sitting down and having to spend the time doing that. Well, you can go for a run, you can, go shopping, cook your meals, do stuff around the house, any kind of chores while you're listening to a podcast, and it's very time efficient, and that will be really helpful for your for your comprehension. If you just listen to podcasts, your comprehension will slowly improve. But if you listen to podcasts regularly and you keep memorizing words from the list with associations, and try to memorize a little bit more every day. So if you did 30 today, try to do 32 or 3 tomorrow, and so on. Progressive overload. Once you've gone through like half of the list, even less, and in all you're also listening to the whatever podcast or radio you're listening to. I recommend a variety, by the way, of the different podcasts and radio shows, so that you don't always listen to the same thing, and you get used to different voices and accents. But yeah, Regular listening plus learning more vocab daily is the key to improve your comprehension fast. Yeah. So for speaking, write this down, memorize the vocab, and then uh, retrieval practice in speaking with immediate feedback of the grammar, of the beginner vocabulary, and the language islands, your language islands, and then for comprehension, listening to podcasts and memorize as much as you can from this. Uh, by the time you are past the first 5,000 words from the list, if you've been also listening to regular to podcasts regularly, you'll understand pretty much everything. And from there, I just continue to get practice. Anyway, this is my advice. If you're a little bit overwhelmed at first, just do this. Stick to this. Yeah, uh, memorize vocab, flashcards, lots of listening, and then retrieval practice, saying things aloud. And with this, if you're consistent, and I know you are, you'll, at least when it comes to fitness, you'll do fine.